Apologies on that. You'll have to see the conversation in two because my phone was the battery had died out. So basically, from we're talking about the local cyber crimes. So the other one is to protect data and also to protect the privacy. For examples or local cybercrimes law, for example, in the United States, we have the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Then from the European Union, you have the General Data Protection Regulation. From the Indian perspective, we have the Information Technology Act. Then from China, then from Kenya, we have the Computer Misuse and Cyber Crimes Act. And also we have also the Data Protection. But basically it's the Computer Misuse and Cyber Crimes Act. So as I had initially stated at the beginning, we have a new Computer Misuse and Cyber Crimes Act. So in relation to these notes, in the due course, I will update them. But basically, it talks about the issues that are covered are unauthorized access, unauthorized interception, authorized disclosure, and also cyber espionage. Then we also have the data protection, whereby this one produces the data commissioner, data privacy commissioner, whereby we have issues about identity identity theft, whereby somebody just takes your identity or impersonates them. We have electronic fraud. We have malware and phishing, which we have discussed earlier on, and also we have jurisdiction and also penalty. Then the next one, we have the Data Protection Act of 2019. This one explains how data from a person or an individual should be taken from them and how such data should be stored. So here now we have the data subject and the data controller and something like that. The data, how the data is processed. So the data subject is the person who the information has been taken. Data controller is the person who takes that information. And then data processing principle is how that information should be used for what purposes. Then I also have a commission, an independent commission, the Data Protection Commissioner that deals with that. Then you also have guidelines that will ensure cross-border transfers on the issues that I've stated. I think from earlier on from the first video, you'll find that there is the issue of sharing information through cross borders, either maybe it's international or regional, so that maybe you can share the negatives and the positives, and that you learn from a particular country so that it can be utilized to another country, and what other country has seen so that they can utilize in the other country. And then the third one, we have the Telecommunication Act. This one I'll also update it, but basically this one involves how communication is intercepted, how that data is retained, and how that communication can be accessed, and also the penalties. A good example I can give you is that you do know that people release musics every day and somebody is releasing music to the world, maybe YouTube or something else. So as a rule, if you want to open a radio, there's some rules or mechanisms you have to fulfill so that you can be given that license. One of it is that you pay a particular amount of money so that you can be given license to release or to so that license for you to play those music or those videos, the music songs, maybe the MP3, the music videos. So there's that amount of money that you have to pay before you can open that radio, because a radio or a TV cannot function without that burudani kidogo. So basically you have to pay for you to access that. So you see now the issue about access to communication data or the penalties. Even if you get caught now, what is the penalty? Basically that's it. Then the other one, now we have the National Information Communication Technology Policy. This one is just a policy. A policy basically is to say it's just a dream or a guidance to something. Basically that's what policy is. Then do have the cybersecurity measures. We have, for example, the National Computer Incident Response Team. There's also capacity building and also public-private collaboration, whereby the public and the private combine forces. And considering it's an evolving world, so every day we'll need to have new laws and regulations on how we entertain or how we ensure that the laws are protected. For example, right now the issues of how do we ensure that there is the individual's privacy and how the data that is taken there, how such information can be used. For example, with the coming of AI, if you are a creative, you find that an AI is given permission to access the books or the posts that you do as a creative, and then it's that those posts or ideas that they use them to answer another person if they ask a question. So see, there is evolving matters that have to be catered for, or for example, an AI imitating the sound of another person. You see, those ones are upcoming. So, and the law is not static. The law just evolves as the times with the society evolves. So from the international aspect now, the international aspect, for the example, the first one I stated is how the international aspect is done, is that it's through the first one I told you is extradition. For example, if you look at the example of Kenya and Tanzania, if Tanzania or Kenya has a law that says if you publish wrong information, the punishment is 3 years, and Tanzania has the same law. Now, for example, if such is the scenario, if a person publishes wrong information about Tanzania while in Kenya, the Tanzanian government, depending on how serious or how serious they take the matter as it is, they can just write a letter to the government through the attorney general and say, we require this person. But before that, there has to be like an agreement between these two parties, which we call the bilateral treaties. Like maybe the finance minister or finance, because it's foreign relation most of the time, but those ones are departmental issues. It might even be the ICT department or the PS that signs that agreement. They go to Kenya, Rwanda goes to Tanzania, they sign that agreement. When they sign that agreement, now let's say they say that, for example, for the publishing of false information, we Kenya and Tanzania say that now we'll start collaborating, and if there's an issue with that, we can just ask the other country to bring that person to our country. So in such a scenario, now Tanzania, or maybe if it's Kenya, now they'll have to write to the government through a letter. The letter is addressed, when it's written to the government, the Attorney General, because he's the legal advisor, he has to handle it. Now he has to go to court and seek permission or authority from the court first, so that that person can be arrested and extradited. So that's the most important aspect. You cannot just be taken from one place to another country without the use of the law, the court giving that approval. But the law in practice and the law in reality is another topic, or a topic of discussion for another day. The other thing is mutual legal assistance treaties, whereby this one just countries come into an agreement whereby they'll be sharing how they obtain evidence, how they conduct investigations, and also exchanging information. This one is the aspect I told you. It's through learning from each other so as to get better. Then we have the other one is the Council of Europe Convention on Cybercrime, the one for Budapest. Then we have Interpol's Global Cybercrime Program. And then the challenges that are faced from the international cooperation is that there's the issue of jurisdiction. Like, where do you charge somebody? A good example I gave you is the one for Facebook that happened, I think, in 2023. The issue that is there now, where do you take the case to? Do you go to the Kenyan aspect or do you go to the US? That's the questions now we ask about jurisdiction. Where do you sue if you have an issue? And then the varying legal standards. At the end of the day, because it's an international aspect, from the international angle, or people who do international relations, they realize that everything else is a matter of national interest. A good example, if is how is he the Prime Minister of Australia or New Zealand on its relation with China, Albanese, if I'm not mistaken. There was a time he quoted, like, I don't have an issue with China. The only issue, I will I will communicate with China whereby the national interests are aligning. But where the national interests are not aligning, then you'll not discuss any further. So basically, that's its interests, the varying legal standards and maybe interests. Then there's the political considerations. Then there's the technological hurdles also. One country might be more progressed compared to another country. So then the case studies I've given you about Facebook Analytica, then also from these notes you can find them yourself. I've given you the example of Iran and the issue about Israel and Iran on how they do it. We have the WikiLeaks also. So there are various examples. There was a time also in the war of Iraq, there was some documents or photos that were published. So basically that's it. And there are various responses. For example, if you use the Facebook Analytica, there was fines that Facebook had to pay. If you use the example of WikiLeaks, the founder or the one who released those documents was initially jailed but later on released. So basically, that's it. And then the application of cybersecurity laws is first to protect personal data. And this one is to protect the user rights and consent. And also, in case there's a breach, then somebody can be told that there is a breach to it. Then there's the issue of critical infrastructure protection. I told you critical infrastructure basically refers to those systems or networks that are very important to a country. You can use, for example, IBC system. You can use, for example, financial system, for example, maybe if the CBK or something like that. The other one that is very important, you can say e-citizen. The other one maybe you can say it's very important is we are going to the issue of IFMIS. It's also critical. It's a critical infrastructure. Then there's the power grid. So you know, power, electricity can also be hacked. So there's that aspect. So there's that aspect also. So basically, the critical infrastructure protection is to regulate those critical sectors, and in case there is an incident or something has happened, how that response should be planned. Then we have government and military cyber security. This one, it involves the government protecting their digital assets and also networks. So this one we have coming up with comprehensive cybersecurity strategies. So there's the issue of the need for collaboration between various government agencies to enhance overall cyber reliance. For example, if we use the example of the money laundering that I just gave you, you'll find that there are various players that are involved. It might involve the DCI from the police, it might involve the ESCC from the ESCC from the ethics, might also involve the Law Society of Kenya, might also involve the financial unit, for example, from maybe KRA. So you see, there's that multi-agency or collaboration. Then cyber prosecution is whereby the laws or the offenses that are done, how are they to be prosecuted? So hereby we have now the legal definition of what cyber crimes is, and also the penalties that are there. And then there's the issue of international cooperation in law enforcement. Then the challenges that are there in cybersecurity laws is the first one that I told you is jurisdictional issues. Where do you sue? The example of Facebook that I gave you about the Kenyan people who they said were being overly mistreated. Where do you think they should sue? Is it the Kenyan court or is it the US court? But ultimately they went to the Kenyan way. Then we have attribution of cyber attacks. Then we have the issue of resources because there's the issue about of amount of money that is there. So what are the future trends and recommendations? First one is international collaboration, so as not to fear about each other. Like, even though countries work for their national interest, they should do it for the common good of the world at large. Basically, that's what international collaboration subscribes to. We have adaptive regulations. This is hereby are saying the law should be adaptive, or the law should evolve as the society evolves with it. Then you also have public-private partnership. For example, if you use Wagner, Blackwater, basically such angles. Then, so in conclusion, is that the application of cybersecurity law is wide, and it ranges from personal data to critical infrastructure, and also prosecuting cybercrimes. So basically, how we say it's wide is depends on the technological advancements that goes through over time. So it's through that technological advancement that you see that cybersecurity laws now will have to adapt and adapt and adapt every day. For example, right now we have the coming of AI. The AI can clone voices. The AI can clone videos. You see, it's the evolving nature of the society as it is that ensures the evolving nature of the cybersecurity laws. So the importance of adaptable cybersecurity laws first is to meet the society's needs, so as to rise and rise with it, so the punishment can rise also with it. Basically, that's it. So then you also have balancing privacy and ethical consideration. For example, if we use the WikiLeaks example, there is a continuous debate. What he did, people say, is ethical, but it's not legal because there's an issue of privacy. You can research on it on your own time. Then there is the legal and regulatory compliance, and also how the response should be done should be timely. And also there's need for educational and awareness initiative. The positive impact of cybercrime is that it ensures economic stimulus. It ensures the rise of the economy, because how the cybersecurity is protected is that it ensures the creation of job opportunities. For example, right now, because maybe there's the issue of cybercrime, maybe the department of the cybersecurity in an organization, they require more people or more laborers, more workers. So you see, if maybe it requires an additional of 3 workers. So you see, these 3 workers have a family to feed on. So the salary that they use it, they go out there to feed their family. That family, they go and ensure development aspect. Maybe they go and build a house. That money revolves. It goes to Mama Mboga at the market. It goes to the ordinary shopkeepers where they buy the flour from, or if it's the hardware where they buy the cement to build their house. So see, at the end of the day, cybercrime is creating job opportunities, and these job opportunities at the end of the day is creating an economic stimulus. Basically, that's it. Then it's ensuring, because of the evolving nature, now people are coming up with skill development on how to factor it out. So that's the benefit. The other benefit, the negative aspect is the issue of financial losses, the data breaches and privacy violations, disruption of critical infrastructure. The good example I can give you is, okay, though it's not a critical infrastructure, but you can just use it as an example. The issue about the drink from Japan, it's Sashi. Basically, you can research on it and see more on it. So you see that one, you can label it as critical because that drink is very widely known in that country. So now the system was hacked. Now people could not know what will I drink. Basically, it's saying there was a time there was a hunger deficit in the country. I don't know if that one you could call it a critical infrastructure. Then there is intellectual property theft, whereby what people do from their creativity or from their mind are stolen. Cyber espionage and national state threats, the example I gave you about Iran and Israel. Ransomware attacks. I've seen that, okay, I can see that from my end, my laptop here has issue of power, but I believe we were nearing the end of it. So I believe that's it for lesson one. So I hope the discussion to it you have understood the concept of lesson one, and if you have any questions to it, you can just state in the comment, and also, yeah, then you can converse in the next class. So thank you so much. I think right now is what's the time? It's 6:01. So have a great day. Have a great day.